All right, I'm turning off my mic. I'll leave it up to you two.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Bob. I think we wait for 1 or 2 minutes before we start. Okay, is it okay, Johnny, with you?
Sure.
Okay. Right now, it still have 13 people, so it's still, or some people is joining us. Okay, so let's wait for a couple more minutes. Do you have class today, Johnny?
No, we are in the final week. So
okay, same as ours. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is actually a good time to do presentation.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. Okay, there are 15. I expect more students coming in.
15 is a nice number, so I usually have less than that in my class.
Oh, really? Well, I have 40 students, so I expect more than 20, but you know.
Sure.
But I think what time do you have now?
It's 11.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
Okay. So we can start anytime.
Sure.
Let's now the 16th and 17th students. So I think it's coming in. So let's wait for a couple more minutes.
Sure.
Maybe not couple, but 1 more minute. So
sure.
I don't want to take away your time.
That's all right.
Well, there are 18 students. Okay, so. Wow, okay, they're 21. Okay, that's good. Can you see the, and Johnny, when they ask questions, I don't know, they talk or what? I mean, they may use question and answer button. Can you see that button at the end, at the bottom?
Yeah, let's see. I don't. Actually, I can open up the chat. They can type their questions.
Yeah, but usually they are, you can use chat too. Some people may use chat.
Yeah.
Some people use Q&A. Okay, so
okay.
I don't know which one.
Typically, we use the Q&A for questions.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So they don't cannot talk, right? I mean, they cannot raise questions.
Their cameras will be off.
Right.
But questions are, I mean, it's up to you how you want to do it, but you can manage questions a little more easily through the Q&A.
Okay.
So if you click on that, you can choose which ones you want to answer live and.
Okay, that's good.
But the attendees, their microphones and cameras are not active because this is set up as a webinar as opposed to a meeting.
Okay, sure. Okay. Johnny, should we start?
Sure. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the last seminar for this semester. And we have very lucky to have Professor Chen from coming here today to talk about a very interesting, timely topic: air pollution, regulatory reforms, and impact on corporate policies. And Professor Chen is a longtime friend of mine, and he has very good titles. He has a Leon Page Endowed Professor of Finance and University a Distinguished Professor at Western Kentucky University. He's also a CFA, a Chartered Financial Analyst, and also won a Fulbright Scholar to China in 2017. So John is very knowledgeable in Chinese issues. Professor Chen is get a master and PhD degree in finance at University of Alabama, and he get a bachelor's degree from Chinese University of Hong Kong. He teach different topics, investment, international finance, and many others. And he has published 230 scholarly articles in leading finance and business journal, such as Accounting, Organizations and Society, Contemporary Accounting Research, Journal of International Business Studies, Journal of Banking and Finance, and Journal of Corporate Finance. So, and you can see he's very prolific writer and very productive scholar. So let's welcome Professor Chen to come here to talk with us.
Thank you, Hongkei, for a nice introduction. I saw a lot of your students showing up today, so I'm glad to meet with you guys. So my just share with you some of my recent interest is about pollution and how that relate to finance or business. Pollution in general is very interesting in the sense that you can approach the issue from more a science perspective, engineering perspective, in terms of how you lower pollution, better our welfare per se. And because of the pollution, governments put up regulations. Okay, so just like United States, we have the EPA put up different regulations. So that's how the politics come in, the economic impact come in, and the business impact come in. And certainly our background is not engineering or environmental science. So we are not talking about how we develop some chemicals or some engineering method to reduce pollution per se. So we are talking about more from economics or business finance perspective. We actually have a term called green finance. So essentially talk about how these environmental related finance topics. So my topic here is kind of integrate some of these topics, as well as share with you some of my recent research in the area. So I start doing this line of research last several years, and then I find out very interesting, and Hongkei kindly invited me to share that with you. I, without hesitation, share that with you guys. Okay, so let's move to okay. First thing first, depend on who you are. So what is pollution? So pollution is bad. Pollution is undesirable. So a formal definition essentially is whoever so just have some harmful chemicals into the environment. So we call that pollution. So certainly there are different types of pollution. So pollution is fairly, it's just a name, but underneath you have air pollution, just like the ozone, sulfur dioxide, whatever. So water pollution. So you pollute the water. So if you have some experience, some water become bad smell or even very strange color like that. And then land pollution. So essentially those are solid waste pollution. A little bit less common is radioactive pollution. Essentially a nuclear plant, they have radioactive leak and then pollute the environment. Certainly noise pollution, very big noise. So again, that affect our hearing, things like that. And less common, even less common is light pollution. So too bright, especially in some big cities, unselectively showing large bright light. and then you have thermal solution, essentially too hot, and so on. So you have all these. So what I like to do is, those are too broad, so I focus on air pollution. Okay, focus on air pollution. So why air pollution is different or special? Number one is very mobile. Okay, uh, so like I'm living in Tennessee, so the a plant maybe 20 miles away can blow those polluted air in my neighborhood. So very mobile. It's measurable. So major cities have air pollutants measure stations. You can quantify the how bad the air pollution is, and also very strong external effect. So in the sense that if you, let's say a city manage the air pollution very well, but a nearby city has bad air pollution. So in winter or the wind blows, those bad air smell will blow into your neighborhood. So a good example is Singapore has a very good manage of air pollution, but across the ocean is Indonesia. So they have volcano erupt, and those make the air pollution bad and blow to Singapore. So there's nothing Singapore can do about it, because it's the external effect. So among all, I think air pollution is the most challenging and also interesting to look at. So certainly whatever pollution is bad. So specifically, how does that relate to economics, finance, or business? Let's look at other effect first, like global warming. It really effect on that. And the most important is it has the damage our physical health. So it's difficult for us to breathe. We may have lung disease, heart disease like that, or you have already had those symptoms. It makes you worse. Okay, shorten your life. So those are pretty well documented. So we can visualize that. Next one is a little bit less visualized, but it's still really somebody in the science literature, health literature already document. So if you live in a bad air pollution environment, you have bad mood, you don't feel happy, sometimes in extreme case, suicidal, and bad temper, like that. Because a lot of time, because you can't breathe, all those trigger a lot of mental issue. And then next one is how does that because air pollution affect your physical health as well as your mental health. So a number of studies in last 20 years already discover that affect the trading behavior of investors. So they have negative outlook on stock price, and therefore they all else the same, they sell stocks and therefore depress the stock price. Stock return is bad. Okay, so another line of research there is not just pollution, a bad weather, raining like that, but I'm not talking about that area. So I'm talking about just air pollution trigger. Investors sell their holdings and therefore stock price is lower. One of my friends did a research quite interesting, because that air pollution affect the individual mental health, essentially affect individual decision making quality. So they focus on stock analysts, stock research analysts, because the bad mental health or physical health effect, and these analysts provide more pessimistic forecasts. So obviously relative to analysts in a clean city doing the same forecast. So the last one is my recent focus area. Since all these research about stock analysts, stock investors, they did not address how that affect the executive behavior. So executives are people too. They are human beings too. They are subject to these bad air pollution. So with all these bad physical health or bad mental health, so I expect executives suffer the same type of bad physical health or bad mental health that affect their business decisions. So that's the main focus or intuition. So let's take a step back now, focus on China. So this is a China business class. So this is I got it from a recent picture in Beijing. So the smart one is in the good times, one is in the bad time. You kind of get a sense that you cannot really see like now you can see the numbers, right? 630 something. So now you can't. So kind of give you the idea, the immediate impact of air pollution. So a lot of time that could be from burning fossil fuels, volcanoes like that. But again, in China is quite common. Okay. So, and why this is the case in China is common. So China began its economic reform in early 80s or mid 80s. So when they grow the economy, economic activity increase. So a lot of factories, they start production. So, and then they need to use fuel. So initially they burn coal, and then all this coal make the air pollution bad. Okay. So the worst case is because the local city officials or the provincial officials, they are given economic targets. So they need to grow their economy. If not, they are considered bad performance. So therefore, they ignore or downplay the air pollution issue or all the pollution issues, especially air pollution. Why? Because they need a good economy. So they need factories to open, to keep going. So they don't want any pollution related disencouragement. So, and in terms of economic success, that is real before 28. So China's GDP growth is more than 10% per year from mid 80s to 2008. After that, slow down to 6 to 8%. So we don't know why. We perhaps can speculate why, but some people argue that spend time or have more strict pollution could be a reason, but we have no specific idea. So there are two types of thinking about how pollution relate to a country's economic success. One is called pollution haven hypothesis, in the sense that when a country starts to grow its economy, they also turn a blind eye on pollution, including air pollution. So a lot of time, developed countries, if they have high pollution industry, they move to emerging economies or developing countries. So the second one is called Porter hypothesis, suggests that, hey, look, it's not just pollution haven. So when the economy grow, they are going to adopt more better technology like that to overcome the adverse impact of pollution. So don't worry about that. So the pollution haven hypothesis cannot be sustained over the long time, and the economy and the environmental achievement can both be present or sustained. Okay, so these are more earlier, 30 years ago type thinking. So let's take a look at the health here. I got it a few months ago from a European Society of Cardiology, kind of give you some idea. Pollution is really bad for our health, kind of give you some idea. In this case is the different types of disease. So what are the economic consequences of air pollution? So number one, you have more heart disease, lung disease, etc. So that increase your healthcare expense. So certainly that increase a country's healthcare expense. Okay. Lower firm productivity because your employees are more likely to get ill and therefore they may miss their work days. And because of that, you have lower regional growth or regional economic development. These are more recent evidence. So this is more from economics perspective. So the most important, as I mentioned, that is lower decision quality individuals. So that's why I mentioned about stock price, analysts making stock assessment. So some research papers provide that, but what I focus is later in this presentation is the firm level or executive impact is not clear. And that's how the research area come out, and that's how we find some interesting results. So the thing about in the China context, after fast economic growth, the economy, the pollution is bad. So because it's so bad that the political leaders actually begin to address the issues. This is quite interesting. So that's why I share with you a few things, fairly general. So because of pollution, every country, including the United States or China or whoever, they all have environmental regulations. So the key is the enforcement of the regulations, or whether individuals or firms or companies really take the regulations seriously. So one interesting set of reforms in China in the last 10 years are quite interesting. I share with you a few. One is called environmental red line policy. So what does that mean? So the government asked each province to give the central government a set of pollution goals. Or anti-pollution goals. Okay, essentially you define the limits in all major pollutants like PM 2.5, water, whatever. So you set your standard and give it to the Chinese government EPA. Okay, and the key is you define your standard. But obviously, if a province define that too low standard, the central CPA, hey, look, your labor province, the standard is like this. How come your standard is so loose? And this mid-level of province official, so they know the central government will compare, so they are not going to be overly easy on themselves. So what they do is, in this case, is they say, look, you cannot tell me you don't know the standard. So because you set your own standard with the approval of the central government. So this is called red line policy, implemented in 2014. So what happened is, these province, they actually go ahead do it. So let me skip to the next one. Okay, so the central government put up 4 phases. So phase 1, you set your standard, and Number two, the province level, they need to pass the legislation because they use those standards to enforce and implement that. And number three phase is you check the results, continue improvement, and evaluate the effectiveness of that. So what happened is 4 years later, 5 years later, so 3 provinces attain stage 3. 8 provinces attain stage 2. So these are based on the P review. So in terms of the central Chinese EPA sent a team of inspectors to check. And they so talk about 11 of the 32 provinces actually in stage 2 or stage 3. Most of them are still in stage 1. So you kind of thinking, it's a good trial, not necessarily quite effective yet. Okay. So the second one is China has a lot of environmental regulations. It's huge numbers. So just like in the United States, we have a lot of regulations. The key is enforcement. So what do? They change the court system. So they have a specialized environmental courts. So these are the courts only process environmental cases. So you don't have other area of crime for other courts. So China has a court system. So they do everything. And then they take out the environment to a special set of courts to do it. So what happened is all these cases become processed faster. That's number one. Number two is all the prosecutors and investigators are specialized in that. Because even if you don't, so after a year or two, you become very specialized. So what that means is the enforcement of the environmental regulations become very much improved per se. So there are more convictions, so more fines, and there's some deterrent effect. So this is creative in the sense that they have regulations, but they are going to drum up the enforcement. So it's not just by lip service. They set up the specialized economic court. So I recently did research on these with some friends in China. So the idea is how that affect corporations. Because you do have some cities have environmental costs, some cities they don't. So what I'll do is we look at the companies in those environmental court jurisdiction versus those not. So we find out those in the environmental court, they have less risk taking scenario. So because they are subject to the court, special court watch, so they take less risk in other activities, the overall company activities. So this is one interesting result come out recently. The third one is also interesting is in China or even in the United States, you have the central government, and then you have the province, and then you have the city. Just like in the United States, you have the EPA at the federal level, and then you have the state environment department, and then you have city environmental office, like that. In China, it's the same. But they find out all these regulations not particularly effective. Part of that is the province officials. They sometimes eat the case, or they need to report economic success. They turn a blind eye on cities' environmental issues, pollution issues. So what the government do is in 2013, the central, the China EPA, so they strengthen their inspector program. So in the past, they send these inspectors to province. and check the province if they did a good job in environmental law enforcement. But now they do is they say, look, we don't do that anymore. We directly go to cities. So what that means is they skip one layer. So these inspectors, they go to cities and check the environment issues. So if they can, they have the authority to get documents, meet with city officials. If those are pretty bad, they have authority to fire city officials at the spot. Okay, so here is this is more like a public administration type approach. So think about you cut a layer. So instead of central government, province, city, you directly go to city. Just like the same as United States, you have the federal EPA. So instead of go to state, they directly go to the firm level, the city level to do inspection. Okay, so the result, no surprisingly, the city level and the company level, they make more environmental investments. So they, because in their financial statements, they need to report the amount of environmental investments made. So after these inspector program, they the city level and firm level investment increase. So so I recently published a paper on these, and environmental journal particularly address this, and that's indeed the case. Okay, so and then another interesting, fairly general policy to tackle pollution is the air quality tournament type arrangement. So in September 2013, the central government require all provinces to disclose air quality in its cities in local media monthly. So you need to report your air quality. There's an air quality index. So the higher the index, the worse air pollution. So you need to disclose. They didn't ask anything. You just need to disclose in local newspapers. So let the citizens know. Okay. So what that means is then you become to have a de facto tournament. Why? Because the citizens compare their city ranking with other cities, compare their province ranking with other province, right? So that's why a lot of time in the past, you don't have this disclosure. Citizens, they don't know. So now they know. So what happened here is the local officials are under pressure at the minimum to enforce regulations and make environmental investment. So what we find out here is those ranked last in a year, they make more environmental investments next year. Okay, if you don't rank last, they are not really making more environmental investment. So think about this. This method is what? This method is very low cost. You just disclosure, okay, and you did not really send inspector there to check, so you don't incur a lot of costs, and just publish in local media, and things are better, at least marginally. So this is an interesting arrangement per se. So I did a paper on these and end up is good. So that's why I shared that with you. So now we come to the last part. So as I said, why air pollutions relate to a company's or business operation. Certainly, I know some of you may think, oh, well, we heard a lot of in the United States, politicians talk about if pollution, if EPA have tough regulations, So you are suffocating business and so on. And those are more from fairly general perspective and more specific in terms of how that affect a company's internal activities or policies per se. So here is the basic idea is if you have bad air pollution, the bad air pollution affect executives, affect all employees, certainly, especially executives making corporate decisions or corporate policy decisions. So I actually look at a few things. So already did research on that. So I'll briefly share that with you about the a company's innovations, so their patents. Okay, cash management. Do they hide negative information? So disclosure about executive compensation, their CSR engagement, trade credit. So I'll briefly talk about this. Okay. So what I do here is I conduct some research studies using China air pollution. So I talk about why air pollution, because it affects the individual's health as well as their mental, therefore affect their decision making. So I look at companies in the polluting industries. If they are not in the industries, perhaps they are not under pressure to do. I look at more recent years because we are more interested what happened today instead of in the past. So in general, I use a multiple regression analysis framework. So if you remember your statistics class, so essentially like an equation, you quantify how air pollution affect cash, affect whatever. Okay, let me share that with you. The first thing is I look at the air pollution in the city, because each city they have the air pollution station. So we are able to tell actually daily pollution level. And remember that that disclosure requirement air tournament in 2013. So we have those statistics. So what I did is I take a daily average, represent that how bad the pollution in a year. Then I look at a company's patents a year later. So I have two measures. One is a invention patents. The other is total patents. So these are at the company level. The company need to be located in that city. Okay. So what I'll do here is in a multiple regression framework, I look at the pollution level. So a high level means bad. So when the high level, the pollution increase, a company has less patents. A company has less patents. Okay. So certainly there are a lot of reasons for that, though I just showed the results. So one ad hoc thinking is when the pollution is bad, so the company may need to spend money in managing the pollution. Therefore, they have less money to conduct research and development, and therefore they have less patents. Okay, so pollution has negative effect on innovation. The second one, I look at trade credit, pretty much the same, but I look at accounts payable. So this is account payable relative to the cost of goods sold. So I use the ratio to take away the scale. So I have accounts payable divided by total asset, a ratio, accounts payable divided by long-term liability. So again, when the pollution is bad, a company has less trade credit, so their trade partners are reluctant to grant them more trade credit, so they grant them less. So all the same, this is not good. This is bad, actually. The next one, I look at executive compensation. So you need to pay your executive. So common sense, right? If you ask an executive to work for a company located in a bad air pollution city, so all the same, they ask for higher compensation. So that means from a company's perspective, they need to pay more. They need to pay more to attract talents. Okay. So again, we show these obvious. Okay. So the next one, interestingly, we look at a company's CSR engagement. So each firm has a CSR index in China. So quality here is the same as the pollution. I just forget to change the name. So when a city's pollution is bad, a company located in the city, they actually engage in more CSR. Now, this is the only opposite. So my explanation is the executives, they experience firsthand the negative effect of air pollution. So they feel the pain. Therefore, they engage in more CSR, especially environmental related CSR. Okay, this is the effect. So what do we learn from these studies? Okay, number one, air pollution is bad. All right. So especially in developing countries due to economic activities, GDP growth like that. Environmental management is not just a science. So beyond the use of a new machine to filter dirty air, it's helpful to streamline administrative process like specialized economic court, parliament, spend inspector directly to a city. So these are effective. Just have regulations is not sufficient. So you need to have creative execution and enforcement of regulations. So next one is air pollution has adverse effect on financial markets. So investors are pessimistic, therefore stock price or stock return is negative. I also find out that air pollution has mostly adverse effect on corporate practice. The exception is CSR, okay? So what that means is if a country or a government or city, they manage air pollution, it's not just good for the environment. In most cases, it's really good for business. So think about our result. So if the pollution is under control, they have better innovation, more trade credit. So they don't have to pay the executive so much, save some funds doing something else, all right? So there are some good things for shareholders. So we had a lot of government officials actually in China as well as in US. So the traditional thinking is, hey, if you have tough environmental regulations, you choke business. Well, that argument may not be valid, or at least in the minimum, exaggerate the negative effect. Why? What I find out here is very robust. If you have good air pollution control, you have better innovation, you pay less, you have more trade credit, and so on. And all these what supposed to help a company, to help a business. So to simply argue that you have top regulations that's not going to good for the for a company or small business, not necessarily correct. At least the negative effect is not that big. Okay, so all these arguments actually fail to consider the adverse impact of a bad air pollution on corporate policies. And again, that's what I learned from these research or from what I observed in the China scenario. So it's 45 minutes, so let me kind of stop here and perhaps entertain your questions.
Okay, now thank you so much for Professor Chen's insightful presentation. I think it's very informative and give us some idea what the impact of pollution on on our lives. So now, the seminar is open to the floor. So any questions for the audience to raise? You can write your question on the Q&A, okay, or you can use chat, okay, or whatever. Okay, so it's up to you. So please ask some questions, okay. Okay, well, I have not seen any question. Maybe they need some warm up. So let me ask a questions.
Sure.
Professor Chen, you raise interesting questions that for polluted cities, that firms in that city have to pay more for the executives, right?
Yes,
so
that's
what
correct.
happened to the other employees? Are they suffer? I mean, do they get higher pay or do they get more sick days off or what? I mean, what are the situations for those people?
Yeah, thank you, Hongkei. So let me repeat. So I did a research project talk about companies in pollution cities. They need to pay the executive more. So essentially, let me go back to the. It's this one. Do they pay their rank and file employees more? I actually don't know, so I did not check into that. So that is something that to go into. I suppose that's the case, but if the rank and file employees are not that mobile, that may not be the case. Okay.
Okay,
So
sure.
in China, they have the labor movement is there, but not as mobile as in United States. So like in US, perhaps for employees, I'm not so sure either, because employees, again, sometimes because of family reason or regional preference, they may not move at all. But China, I'm not sure. But that is some interesting question to look into. So perhaps I'll check. So this is a working paper that is something we can check employees. The statistic is there. Actually, each company, they need to report their average salary pay to all employees, including executives. So we can check that. So that one, I'm not sure. So it sounds like it should be, but not necessarily. Depend on how mobile are those rank and file employees. Yeah.
Okay, there's some questions you
So,
can see at the Q&A. Can you look at those? See,
sure. Let me see.
Okay. Yeah.
Q&A. Okay, I saw that now. Okay, let me check. Let me do it one by one. So
okay, sure. Take your time. Take your time.
So the first one is from Ashley. Chernobyl is not regular pollution. However, do you see any drastic disasters such as these in the near future? Chernobyl is a first, as far as I remember, is a first major nuclear accident, and also they have radioactive pollution. So all the lands with that, and then the Japanese nuclear plant a few years ago, perhaps the second major nuclear plant pollution. as far as I understand, at that time when I was young, so there are a lot of lessons there to be learned. Part of that is we examine the safety of nuclear plants. So I suspect there won't be many drastic disasters that happen, because once you have radioactive pollution, is virtually no way to manage that in a satisfactory way. Okay. So here Ashley asks the second question is, what about the West Virginia chemical plant explosion today? So what could be the long-term effect? Again, that chemical explosion that will lead to land pollution, assuming they are not radioactive. So that will be making a lot of those lands not habitable. And again, that's why pollution is bad, no matter how I look at that from a economics or business perspective. So there's always the scientific element of that. So that's why many of my friends major in environmental engineering. They try to use technology to try to manage this exposure. So the next one is Leanne. She asked, where would international researchers look in order to find Chinese sources on regional pollution levels in China? So the air pollution level actually is disclosed in websites, and certainly you can use those official statistics. 10, 15 years ago, somebody reports some potential flaw in terms of not reporting the correct statistics, but that has been addressed. So that's why I use more recent statistics. But actually, there's some satellite data using remote sensing to check air quality. Those are global, and there's some source of that. So next one from Faye. What do you think is the future of heavy industrial companies such as metal or coal companies? Will they be forced to change due to environmental issues? I bet that's the case, because all these regulations actually are there. So in the past, city officials or provincial officials, because of the economic growth, they turn a blind eye or didn't enforce regulations. The regulations are there, okay. So now with all these creative program from the central government, so I have no doubts the central government officials, like the Premier Li Keqiang or other officials, they want to manage pollution. They don't want to have a bad air pollution despite economic success. So that's from their public talk in the last 7, 8 years. Okay, they talk about a lot of in their annual report. They talk about fresh air is important, green land is important, and so on. So I would say these metal or coal companies, they are forced to improve the technology or shut down. That's why not a whole lot of demand for coal. So these coal companies actually, their performance actually in terms of their profit actually depressed quite some time now. So some of my friends in Shanxi, that is a province for coal mines, they actually, the local economy is bad. Why? This coal actually is selling at very cheap price. So it's not because people don't want to, because of the pollution standards, and a lot of this creative enforcement make companies not using coal or use less coal nowadays. So next one is from Ken. So he asks, how can we solve the issue of pollution as a society and hold countries accountable? As you say, regulations may be in place, but may not be enforced. this is a good question, especially air pollution. Remember the example I talked about Indonesia and Singapore. Singapore did a good job, but Indonesia, they just, besides the volcano, they actually start burning trees in terms of the volcano make the trees burning. They did not spend the effort to distinguish the trees, and all this smoke moved to Singapore. So again, that is an issue because of jurisdiction. So in the Singapore example, Singapore actually end up pay Indonesia, help them to distinguish those forest fire. And perhaps not the ideal solution, and that's what they did. So that's why you need some global cooperation, like the Paris Accord. Unfortunately, our country withdrew from that, but I think we're going back in. But again, you need to have some common sense enforcement. So China had bad pollution records 10 years ago. Is it better in the last 5 years? I think so. Does it mean still very desirable? Not necessarily, but it's much better. Many of my friends at Wuhan used to be a bad air pollution city, so it has been improved last couple of years. So still a long way to go, but the thing is, you need to be creative in terms of the enforcement, like the environmental court, inspection, and those are creative actually. Also, this from Ashley. So you thank me a little bit so much. So I thank you for attending, and it's fun to share with you what I did last several years and recently. So when I work on these research projects, I feel good myself too. So I finally able to leverage my finance skill and integrate with air pollution or fairly general pollution enforcement type research, and to make positive contribution to China and also other parts of the world. And certainly, despite I use China research in these examples, I have no reason not to believe these results won't apply to at least other developing countries. In United States, maybe not, I don't know. But in developing countries, that's going to be always helpful. I think about just have more disclosure. So that's very easy to do, actually. Virtually, the cost is minimal. So you basically ask the city government, hey, say, look, you need to tell us your air pollution index daily. And then you publish it, see which city rank last, and that's going to work. And it works actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the questions. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you very much. I think there are a couple more questions, right? If you have time.
Sure. Oh, forgot. Oh, Ashley. So here one couple of questions about CFA. So kind of not related to here. So since I already answered all those environmental related. So let me answer this one. So about the CFA. CFA is interesting. Is helpful. It has a very structured module to summarize all you learn in finance or related courses. Normally, that's my own personal assessment. If you are a serious finance student, you should be able to pass level 1 with reasonable effort. You don't need to study 10 hours a day to do it. Perhaps maybe 1 to 2 hours a day on average. So I would say you're taking exam in May, so you start working on it in January. You spend about anywhere 8 to 10 hours, perhaps 2 hours a day. So assuming you take Saturday, Sunday off, so you should be able to pass. So depend on your background. So there are statistics, economics like that. If you have pretty strong background in those, you don't need 8 to 10 hours. And they have questions about primary investments, but certainly your corporate finance or banking class, international finance class, that's going to be helpful. So I wish you well. And then for your advice, already mentioned. So some people find out using some exam prep course will be helpful, because these exam prep organizations, they are able to summarize all the main points and condense the material into anywhere like 4 to 5 summary books, and each book may have 200-300 pages and exercise before exam, mock exam like that. So that's going to be helpful. Yeah. Let me see. Oh, I have some more.
Yeah,
So,
I think last question.
Okay. Jason asked, California governor said no new gas vehicle will be sold in the state by 2035. Do you think China will do something similar? You bet, because when I was in Wuhan, they already switched all those motorbike into electric. So manufacturers cannot sell gas motorbike. So, and then they encourage all these taxi cab using natural gas, which is cleaner, okay, which is much cleaner than gasoline car. And their public bus actually use natural gas. Some use electric. So a lot of cities promote the electric public transportation. So I think China is moving that direction. So so the last one is about it's about CFA, so that should be fine. So good luck to folks that taking the CFA exam.
Yeah, I think that we're going over 1 hour. So thank you so much, Professor Chan, for your interesting talk, and thank you. Good luck to you, and thanks for talking to us.
Okay, thank you. So thank you for inviting me. So nice to meet all your students.
Yeah, I'm glad today that a lot of students are asking questions. So that's very, very, very good. Very interesting.
Okay, good. Yeah, I'm impressed too. Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay,
Talk to you
thank
later.
you.
Okay.